and welcome to another episode of Film Freaks, movies that we love. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold. This is your old pal, the Moo Cow, and I'm joined with
Jonathan Moody.
And as you can tell by the title of the book here, the movie we are doing is a classic 1972 film called The Legend of Hell House.
Legend of Hell House.
One of my favorite movies as a child. Scared the living crap out of me, and it has a bunch of folks in there that I absolutely love. It's got Bonnie Franklin. It's got Malcolm McDowell. It's got Clyde.
Not Malcolm McDowell. Roddy McDowell.
Roddy McDowell. Sorry. Thank you. This is our second attempt at
That
this.
was the first time we did it. We did a whole hour. Everything was going great. We had a great discussion, and then there's no sound.
And it was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so it was like, no, I think 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so it's been a bit.
Yeah.
But we did want to come back and talk about this film because it was a lot of fun. You hadn't seen it before, right?
I had never seen it, no. I loved it.
It was in my long list of movies that I have talked about in Forgotten Horror Classics. This would not have been in Forgotten Horror Classics because it's pretty well known and it's on Tubi.
It's on Tubi. Everybody, people have done Blu-rays of it.
It's where I've talked about the development of the horror film and the haunted house or ghost movie, how it went from, originally in the 30s, haunted houses and ghosts weren't really covered. They had all the other monsters. They had Dracula and Frankenstein and King Kong even in the 29 and all these other things, but they never did ghosts because ghosts were considered passé. It was always a joke. And there were very specific movies that went against that grain starting in the 40s, and then, I mentioned Hitchcock kind of got into that a little bit too, with Rebecca, even though Rebecca's not technically a ghost story, but a lot of the great Gothic tropes that come to define ghost stories in Hollywood are there in that film. And you're kind of guessing, and that's kind of the point of the movie, is that you're guessing about it. But it doesn't really take itself seriously until, I would say, The Uninvited. And then there are a few other movies. This movie is that development in that line. Now, today, it's a very different world, and, ghost movies are approached a lot more. Dozen. Yeah, and they're approached a lot more seriously now, but it wasn't until later on. And then 72, around 72, 73 was pretty much the last time for that group. And then it wasn't until The Shining, which would have been in the late 70s, 79, something
80,
like that.
I think.
80, yeah. That's when it kind of got reinvented again, and then Amityville Horror also, and what's the one with the little girl?
The Ring?
No, the little girl.
Well, the little girl that comes to the TV.
Carol Ann, go to the light.
Poltergeist,
yeah.
Just say Carol Ann, because,
And then that's when kind of the modern take on haunted houses go. So in other words, this is still in that line where there weren't a whole lot of films that were doing it and taking it seriously, and they did a really, really good job. But in fact, this is written by Richard Matheson, who's a really, really good writer.
Didn't he do mostly sci-fi stuff?
Mostly sci-fi, but he did a lot of other things too. But yeah,
he also wrote for a couple like Tales from the Crypt and things like that.
Wrote I Am Legend, amongst other things.
I Am Legend.
And the book, which I just started reading because I hadn't read it before, and I tend to fall asleep when I read now. It's just happens when I get older, so I haven't read the whole thing. But the book apparently is different in that it's a lot more graphic and a lot more intense and a lot more sexual than in the film. There's definitely some sexual stuff going on, but nothing compared to what you would call today.
Oh, yeah.
But, there's a lot of stuff that's in the... For example, there's a time when they go into the chapel. They're in this old house by this guy, Belasco, who's very rich and is creepy, and he's, they think... Part of them think that it's just him, the other one think that it's multiple hauntings, and that's kind of part of the story is to try to figure all that out. But he's got this chapel that tends to be sort of the center of the story, and as the movie unfolds, you'll understand why. And it's creepy and everything, but in the book, it's 100% creepier because in the book, it's pretty much pornographic. Like the crucifix.
Yeah, there's like more like orgy stuff, right?
Yeah, like a lot of it, and like the giant crucifix that's in the movie, that's pornographic and very detailed. in the book, like disturbingly so.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure this was 70s, right? So I'm sure in the 70s they were able to get away with some stuff, but they couldn't get away with nothing pornographic, basically.
Well, I mean, it was around the time when all that stuff was happening, so I mean, they could have, but
I mean, the MPAA would have given an X, though, right? Or something.
Yeah, I think they just decided to pull that back and not focus on that so much.
They probably wanted more of a mainstream audience to want to see it, you know?
Yeah, and focus on the scares as opposed to
the sex.
The disturbing part, because there's none of it is like, titillating. It's all disturbing. Well,
it's titillating to like creepy people who get off on that shit. There are people that, weirdly enough, that we talk about that on other podcasts, but like that to me is just disgusting and disturbing itself.
But there is still some stuff, like there's a little bit of brief nudity. Bonnie Franklin. And it's really, really, really well done. Do you remember kind of what happens in the film?
Yeah, so basically what happens is this group of people are kind of paid to go visit this house this guy wants to he wants to own it or whatever. Like, he does own it. He does own it. Okay.
He's old and he's dying and he wants to know if there's life after death, basically.
Yeah. So he wants to check on it and see if maybe, but he doesn't want to go in it.
No.
But he doesn't want to go in it. So he pays these guys. He pays these people to go in there, and one of them is the guy's wife, the doctor's wife, and the doctor's wife, I guess, usually goes with him on these things, but he's trying to tell her not to because this is not the sort of place to go.
Right, this is the Belasco house, the quote-unquote Mount Everest of haunted houses.
Mount Everest, they call it the Mount Everest of haunted houses. I thought that was kind of yeah.
So you've got this physicist there who also happens to be interested in parapsychology and chasing down ghosts and trying to figure out what the hell's going on with that with his wife.
Well, okay, so, but he's still a physicist.
Yeah.
Right, first. Like, no matter what, it's almost like, in a way, he doesn't believe that any of these ghosts exist.
Yeah, he thinks that there's some other explanation for them.
Every single thing is an explanation. Oh, I hear voices. That's an explanation. I hear these things. That's an explanation. There's an explanation for, an ectoplasm. There's a reason for that.
Right.
And all this stuff.
He's a rationalist. He doesn't say that these things are not there. He's simply saying that there's got to be some other reason. Right. So that's what he's there to explore.
So he's there, and then there's a woman who is what are those things
She's a
called?
medium.
Medium. There's two mediums. There's the physical medium, and then there's the mental medium.
That's Florence.
And the mental medium is the guy, right?
Yeah.
He's the one who is supposed to be the one who gets the ghost to talk to him. But the physical medium, which, as you said, her name is Florence.
Yeah, that's Florence.
Florence ends up getting like all the talking happens to her.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't know what the fuck is going on because it's not supposed to happen to her. She's the physical. She's the one who's supposed to, I guess, see all the ghosts, and he's the one who's supposed to hear all the ghosts.
Yeah, Fisher is the other guy. That's the one played by Roddy McDowall. He's the guy that. The thing about him is that he was in a group that investigated the house previously, like 20 years ago. He was 15 years old, and he was there because even at 15, he was some kind of amazing, powerful physical medium. And so they brought him along, and of course, they all died except him. I think one managed to get out, but went to the insane asylum. And you don't pick it up at first, but all of them, all the ones who either died, they got their legs crushed or something happened with legs, and the whole thing with legs, later on comes in to figure out why. It's really well done.
We're gonna talk about that because if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it on Tubi.
Definitely.
Before doing this,
it's creepy
before watching
and
any more of this podcast, because we are kind of dive into that stuff, and because that is very crucial to the plot, but it's also a spoiler. So,
but essentially, in order to figure this out for this guy, they're all paid $100,000 to be there a week. So they're supposed to, and then give him a report. So that's why, even though there are scenes where shit's going on and you're like, why the fuck are they still there? Why? I'd be leaving. I'd be running away. I'm like, yeah, sure, but they want their money.
And I mean, it was a lot of money back then, but today's standards, I'd say nope.
Yeah.
I would say it ain't worth it, man. I can make that money doing something else or whatever. I would rather do that because it was like $10,000 or something, which
right, right,
like a lot of money back then, back in the 70s.
And the doctor has a plan because he's got this machine because he figures it's all energy anyway. So he's going to bring in this machine. It just hasn't arrived yet, where it's going to reverse polarity and then clean the house out, and it's going to be done. That's his plan, and so he's got to at least wait until that stuff comes and gets delivered anyway.
Is that? I wonder if that's where they got the term in Poltergeist, where the lady is like, this house is clean, right?
Could be.
Is that? I wonder if it was from this movie. If they watched this movie, and because that's the idea is like this, you got to clean the house out and get all the ghosts out of there or whatever. All the to them to the scientist it wasn't ghosts, it was just energy,
right? And the thing is, and the wonderful thing about it is it's not like one person was correct and the others were wrong. They were all correct in their own individual way, but they weren't correct. They didn't figure it out until all three of them managed to put their ideas together. So the doctor was right with regards to energy and cleaning the house, and then Florence Tanner was correct. Well, she was incorrect initially because she thought it was multiple hauntings. It turned out to just be the one. Spoiler.
The one guy fucking with her the whole time.
Right, right. But it did. I mean, it was an actual person. So she was right about that. And then Fisher was also right because he's the guy who finally puts it all together and figures it out. But he was interesting because, he walked into this place already turned off. He's like, I'm not doing this. I'm just taking my money. I'm just going to sit here. I'm not going to engage. And I'm getting the fuck out of here because I barely survived it the last time. And if you guys were smart, you would do the same thing. So he was hardcore about all that.
But okay, so had all of them just did that, just sat and did nothing, and let it whatever, and then waited until the time that they were supposed to go, but they didn't get anything, right? They didn't figure anything out or whatever. But they still got their money?
Possibly, I don't know. In theory, but you get the impression that the house wasn't going to let them get away with that easy. It probably would have messed with them a lot more.
Right.
Because it's evil and malevolent.
Yeah, it's evil and malevolent and controlled by the most egotistical asshole on the planet, or whatever.
And the machine would have worked, except it turns out he had planned for something kind of like that, and he built this lead-lined place. And you got to watch the movie. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, I mean,
I hate to spoil it. I don't want to go into too much detail.
Yeah, you should, because if anybody's watching this, hopefully they've seen it, or whatever. If you haven't seen it, like I said, go watch it on Tubi. It's free on Tubi. There's no reason for you to watch this unless you want to be spoiled and not see it, or whatever, and that's fine. So either way, we're gonna spoil the shit out of this movie because it got in a little bit of time. So
and then the wife is along for the ride because she doesn't want to be left behind, but clearly she's got some kind of weird repressed sexual things going on there because that's how the house gets to her. She's always all of a sudden seeing weird sexual things, and then she's running around with hardly any clothes on or getting all loosey goosey with Fisher, and he's like super uncomfortable.
Pretty much just stay away from me,
Yeah. I mean, she's gorgeous. I mean, it's great, but
I know, but he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to upset the status quo there. And there's one point where he explains that to the boss because the doctor has no idea and thinks Fisher is throwing himself at her or something, or whatever. There's a couple of things like that which was interesting. I really enjoyed the stuff with Florence and the ghost and stuff, and she thinks it's the son of the guy.
Yeah, she's convinced that there's a quote unquote multiple haunting, and so that's how the house attacks her. it starts to masquerade as the son, Lionel Belasco. And turns out there was one. And they find his ass behind a wall. And by the way, he was not a happy, nice character. And, you know...
Oh, is that in the book?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't remember talking about that as...
Yeah, well, he's chained because he's a sexual deviant and violent and just horrible.
It's so interesting, the stuff that they take out of the book that explains more stuff to the movie. I mean, I'm usually one of those people that, like, I'm worried because when you watch when you read a book, right, and you read the whole thing, like, say, Clockwork Orange, read that book before I watched the movie.
It's very different.
And then, yeah, it's very different and stuff, and Stanley Kubrick was able to do that. But some books are the exact, you know, they are, the movie is the exact, you know, adaptation of the book.
And there are people who do that. There are people who, there is no book, it's just a movie, and then they pay them to write a book.
Right.
And then it's the exact same thing because that's what they want. I know.
Why?
I know.
Why?
It's ridiculous.
See, this is the thing. And you know, Paul knows this, and if you know me at all that you're watching, you know I'm into transmedia stuff, and the whole point of transmedia, as opposed to multimedia or any kind of media like that, multimedia means adaptations,
right,
and stuff like that. The Harry Potter books are the same as the Harry Potter video game, are the same as the Harry Potter movies. You know, all of them are the same thing.
Right.
Which to me is no fun because it's like, now all I have to do is study the book to understand the to understand the video. You know what I mean? Like, you want something to be different and give you something new.
Right.
So I like it that this sort of goes, you know, but what it just doesn't do is just doesn't go into the details.
Right. And actually that's one of the big things that Stanley Kubrick was always doing, because if you notice, most of his movies were based on books, but they were just the baseline. He took that basic structure, narrative structure, and then totally made it his own.
Right.
And that's why these movies are so brilliant, because he's able to do that.
Hitchcock did the same thing with Psycho. Like that, the Psycho script was more twisted and more messed up or whatever, and then he just made it more psychological and everything, which was not the story. But I mean, you know, you can't tell me that, like, people remember the book way more than they remember.
Was that Robert Bloch?
Yeah, Robert Bloch.
Yeah.
And so
he's another really good writer.
Yeah, so they did that. So, I mean, that's the great thing. Like, yeah, you said that, and we've had a discussion because in the next episode you'll see there'll be a little discussion between John Ward and Paul Presenza talking about Shining, right, and their interpretation of it. But the point is that, like, the Shining book was very different than the than the movie, and some people are purist in the book. They love the book. They think Stephen King wrote the most amazing book, and they adapted that into the, I think, was it Anthony whatever the movie.
I never saw it.
Yeah. Well, see, maybe you haven't seen it. You just dismissed it as, well. Be better.
I've read the book. It's not going to be better than the book.
It might be the same as the book, though.
And that's the disappointing part. I don't want it to be the same as the book.
Well, I'm just saying that some people love the book and would rather it be the same as the book. That's the thing. That some people are purists like that.
That was my problem with The Stand, is that it was too much like the book.
Right.
Without being better than the book.
Right. And I'm with you. Like, I generally like it if you give me something newer and different than the book, because I've said this. This will be another discussion, but was it comic books, right? The guy who owns the comic book store that I go to, I love him to death, Mark Welch. Go check out Comic Cubicle. You
read comic books?
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Shut up. So anyway, he goes and says that he wants all the comic books movies to be just like the comics. And I said, why? I said, isn't the point of making a movie that you're going to make something different than the medium has already done? Like, if I read the book and then I watch the movie, I'll know everything that's going to happen.
And in the business, this is what you generally do if you want to become a writer. because all you have to do is follow the script. It's already planned out for you. So it's easy peasy lemon squeezy to sit there and write a serialized version of a movie that never, wasn't based off of a book. Super, super easy because there's no creativity in it whatsoever. It's later on when you have to come up with your own shit and make an adaptation and make it work. That's the difficult part.
Right.
And that, when somebody can do that and it's just,
do it well.
And do it well. But the key thing is that I want to point out, not only with this film, but all the other films we mentioned, you got to start off with the good writing, with an excellent writer who knows what they're doing. If you don't have that, I don't care what the movie is or what the project is, it's not going to work.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah, start off with writing. The writing is the number one thing in a film.
Well, okay, so good thing to, I will say this real quick. This will be the last thing I say about comic books or whatever. But James Gunn actually just said something in a press release.
Mm-hmm.
He said, we're not going to give you dates of when these movies are going to come out. These movies are going to come out when they come out. Because what we're working on is the writing of this. And he said that is the most crucial thing that we in DC Comics are going to do, that's going to separate us from everybody else, is we are going to work on the writing, nail all of that down so that it's perfect before we send it out, because we don't want half-assed scripts that we have to make up and fix as we go along.
Mm-hmm.
We want the scripts already to be good to go before we go and do it.
Sure.
And that might be the problem with Hollywood today. A lot of times, scripts are just like greenlit and ready to go before they're ever really fully finished to the point where they're
sometimes they never get finished.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and sometimes you can't. I mean, sometimes you do got to let them go because you can't, because they're never going to get finished.
Well, and then think about it from a filmmaker's point of view. Imagine, you're going to have somebody who's going to write a treatment, who's going to write a script based on a book that we already you already know is a fantastic story with great characters, and that's a joy. You already know you're going to be given a good story. All you have to do is worry about how to tell it, how to present it.
Well, that's the thing. That's what Hollywood thrives on these days, is the fact that, does it have a built-in audience? Does it, and does it, and is it well versed? Like if I said, Harry Potter to you, Harry Potter. You may not like Harry Potter, but Harry Potter.
Right.
That, there's probably going to be more Harry Potters in some way or another at Warner Brothers, because that's a thing. Hell House has a cult following. We talked about on the last video that we did that they should have made a Hell House like remake or TV show or something.
I was thinking series. Yeah, definitely a TV series would be great, because there's a lot in the book that just didn't quite make it into the movie, and you have to be expeditious about that because you're only working with a compressed amount of time. But there's a lot going on there, and they could have made this into a 6, 8, or 10 episode miniseries. That would have been great.
Who owns the rights to Hell House? Was it Warner Brothers? Or?
I couldn't tell you who owns it now, but I presume Warner Brothers, someone like that.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know who. It doesn't really.
Yeah, it doesn't say it on the book, and I know we had the DVD before, but I think it's.
I would love to see that, because then they could explore some of the more disturbing elements that are in this.
On like either Netflix or on HBO Max or something, that Hell House TV show would be amazing. I would love that. And we were talking earlier, the better directors these days are like James Wan, and we also both love Mike Flanagan.
Oh yeah, Flanagan.
And Mike Flanagan would be perfect for this, because he's already adapted 3 or 4 shows, haunting shows.
The thing is who has the rights, because you can't just take somebody else's intellectual property. You can't take somebody else's intellectual property and just develop something without their okay. Can't do it.
unless it's out of not out of, but what is it, in public domain.
Yeah. Or if you're in some other country somewhere, you can't do it in the United States, okay, and get away with it. and you pretty much can't get away with it in Europe either. So,
but you also, I love how some filmmakers, indie filmmakers, that is, will take in a public domain film and claim, "Well, I optioned the rights to this film." No, there's no optioning rights to a public domain film.
And there are people who make what are called fan films or fan fiction, where it doesn't really cross the line, and that's fine. But you can't sell that. You can't. Make
you're not
money
allowed
off of
to.
that.
People do.
It's an interesting way to sort of show off your talent with somebody else's stuff, but.
Here's my thing on it, and I almost made one, and then I got a cease and desist.
Yeah,
order.
that'll happen.
So I said no, I'm not gonna make one. That was my last hurrah into doing that, because I was like, no, I don't like that. I want people to notice. I want that company to notice me. I do not want them to send me cease and desist from their company.
Although I still think it's a great idea if we did something in the whole Woodiverse. You know what I mean?
Well, most of that's public domain.
Right.
However, there's rights issues with a lot of this stuff. I mean, John Johnson had an issue with Plan 9.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not an issue. He had lawyers, and his lawyers told him that everything was clear. And the people that came and said, we have the rights to them, didn't actually own the rights to them.
Let us make the movie, or I send Conrad Brooks to beat your ass.
Yeah. So. Anyway, so that was one thing. So I mean, a lot of those things are public domain. I think once it's at 70 years or something, it's automatically public domain. So so I think unless it's a movie that has the big rights to it, like Gone with the Wind or something, where I don't think that's in public domain.
No, and then some places have that sneaky way of, we're going to put out a movie even though it stinks, or we don't care, just in order to redo the rights.
Right, yeah. Hellraiser did that, things like that. I was thinking more along also Wizard of Oz. That's in public domain. However, the rights, I was told basically, if you want to do so you can't do Ruby Slippers, in your Wizard of Oz, because Ruby Slippers was the was the thing in the movie, right? So that actually is owned and copywritten by whoever owns the rights to Wizard of Oz. However, if you want to do green slippers or another color slippers, that's fine.
Fuzzy hedgehog slippers.
Right. If you want to do that, you could do that. But I'm just saying, it's a matter of rights issues. So doing Hell House, you would have to get the rights to do that.
And it would also depend, because while Warner Brothers does have the movie rights to the movie...
Are you sure it's Warner Brothers?
I'm not 100% sure. One of them has the movie rights. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have the book rights. Because so they have the Legend of Hell House, and that's the name of the film. But the book is Hell House. Yeah. So you could make an adaptation from whoever has the rights to Hell House, and I presume that it's the Matheson estate, and I don't know if the family has that or who has that or whatever. You could go and make a deal, and that's probably who you would go to make a deal with. You wouldn't have to go to whoever it is, Warner Brothers or Orion or whoever it was,
and talk with them and they would have to talk with the state, and they would have to get all that stuff. It's the same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. Nightmare on Elm Street. They said that there's new copyright law that says that about 35 years or something after a movie is done, the rights revert back to the writer, And so, Stephen King, that's why so many people are putting out Stephen King remakes as quickly as they could without really putting thought into them, like the Pet Sematary remake and whatnot. So, because some of those were going up and going back to Stephen King, which would mean that Stephen King has full control over whether or not he wants somebody to, and he would want them to stick it to the story from his books. He gets really frustrated when people say, the stuff about movies, because he wants them to read the books.
Well, and also because there haven't been very many good movies based on Stephen King books. Most of them are terrible.
That's true. And it's not The first Pet Cemetery is amazing, or whatever. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
One day it might be on one of my shows. But the other one, but yeah. So Nightmare on Elm Street. That's actually in Wes Craven's estate.
And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe Richard Matheson's son is also a writer.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't surprise me if he's the guy that owns the rights. I don't know. We'd have to see.
Yeah.
But
and he would be the perfect person to sort of help write.
Sure.
know.
And the thing is like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the book that just didn't quite make it into the movie. But the movie itself is still very, very rich. There's a lot going on. The characters are all very well drawn out. They're very interesting. They all have their own little things that are going on, and there's a lot of tension between them. Some of it gets resolved, some of it gets unresolved. The setting was super cool. What did you think of the setting and like the productions in general?
The house is pretty neat. I was like a little like, that's just so weird to have a chapel in your house, but that was what like. That's a big mansion,
right.
And everything. It'd be like having a bowling alley in your house.
In this country, it would be very odd. In fact, it rarely ever happens. In England, where a lot of these old manorial estates and mansions were based on medieval castles and things, you would have a chapel there. And that's one of the changes that they made, because in the book, the manor is actually, it's only 70 years old, and it's in Maine. And in the film, they moved it to England. And the production was English, so it makes sense. And they were able to use an old manor estate in England. And it just makes it feel a lot more realistic, because, they've got houses that are 500, 600 years old there. Because they're based on medieval castles and things.
Who's the director?
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that. I remembered it 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I don't remember it this week.
Well, because we just watched it, so it probably popped up. Yeah, the director was really good. I mean, the direction was...
It's not Freddie Francis. I forget who it was.
He was whoever it was. Did a great job. Sorry, I totally did not look this stuff up before I came back.
Because we're professional like that. Yeah, the director was really good. The cinematographer was fabulous.
I was even gonna rewatch it before, and I got sidetracked with a million things, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'll remember it, and I did. I remember a lot more than I thought I would. Honestly, I thought I was gonna have you talk more.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on. What about? I mean, the music was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the use of color, the way it was shot with all the shadows. I thought that was really, really well done, without it being too much. You don't see a whole lot of weird stuff other than the cat. You remember the cat?
The cat. No.
There's a couple of crazy cat scenes there going on.
Yeah, there's one I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
One cat scene I didn't like, but aside from that, I mean, I kind of felt bad for the cat because it got possessed by the ghost and stuff. So, it started scratching the girl and attacking her and everything, and I was like, no.
Yeah,
because anytime talked about this in many podcasts and stuff, but anytime I see critters in a movie, a horror movie, I instantly go, nope. Nope.
Look,
get out.
Plenty
get out,
of people
leave.
to kill. Leave the critters alone.
I know. Kill all the people. I don't. If they, unless it's like Cujo, or Man's Best Friend, where the animal just needed to die because it was just too much pain.
Right.
And stuff.
Well, and it was killing everybody in sight.
Yeah, and it was too dangerous for the world. But when something's possessed by a ghost, that's fucked up. Just let that cat disappear and never be seen again or something, ever again. I would have been fine with that. If it had never been seen again, I would have just left it alone, but no, it was seen again.
But so if you like movies like The Haunting or The Uninvited or something like that, where it's a classic, scary...
Not The Haunting 1999.
No. We're talking about the 1962 movie? Yeah, the original. If you like that kind of film where it's atmosphere and really good acting and great directing and all of that, and it's not so much blood and gore and guts and, this is more of your kind of a film. There's a little bit of that in there, but not much. It's effective because of the tension because of the atmosphere and because of all the other stuff that's going on. And
Right.
it's really, really well done. It's super creepy. This is one of those movies that I always say I want to show to somebody who's never seen it late at night with all the lights out, so that their imagination can start, playing tricks on them. And every time they hear a noise, they're going to get freaked out. I'd love to show Just Jen this because she gets spooked real easy.
Oh my God, she would kill you.
Lenore managed to get through some of the scary ones too, and she was like, "Oh my God, that was super scary."
Yeah.
I didn't get through to this one because again, it wasn't a forgotten horror classic.
Yeah.
But, it was still really, really.
You're still
well
doing
done.
those things too, which is really great. I'm really happy about that because there's some, that I feel, need to be sort of seen, and everything. And you're doing that with Jolene, and she's really enjoying it. And
Yep.
Which is great because you needed somebody
Yes.
who hadn't seen these movies or whatever.
And I'm gonna talk because I didn't get to do all of the early, really, really well done haunted house movies with Lenore, so I didn't get to do I think 2 of them. So I'm gonna do them with her. It's just that we started off with something that was more modern. We did Hagazusa and we did Dark Waters, which are more overlooked classics as opposed to forgotten. Some people just never even saw them, much less forgot about them.
Right.
We also want to do The Apostle, so I'm kind of hoping we can get you on that one as well, because I think you would enjoy that one. But in any event, with regards to Legend of Hell House, all I can tell you is, especially if you're a Roddy McDowall fan, this is one of his best performances. If you're a Bonnie Franklin fan who was in The Uninvited, it's great to see her come back, as an adult this time. So she's in 2 of these great haunted house films. She was in a couple other ones too in the 60s and early 70s before she went off and did other things like TV. So they were both really, really good. And even, Clive Revell, who's in a bunch of like Hammer kinds of stuff, he was really, really good as the doctor. I can't remember the name of the wife, the actress who played her. She was also in a bunch of Hammer kinds of films. All the performances were really, really good. And the thing is, it's one of those movies that, I wondered a little bit if you might not have liked it because it's a very small cast and it's a very small world that they're in. They don't change too often.
Right. And you know me, I don't really typically like it when it's just one location. That I have exceptions to that rule. It's if, so take an example of the movie Witch House. That's took all place in one house or whatever, but it was boring and it was just not as much fun. Later they did Witch House 2 and 3 and that got a little bit it opened up a little bit more and it felt better and I enjoyed it more. But the first one and I love David Dakota. I don't know why. I think it was just made in 2 days and I don't know. I just wasn't interested in it.
But Hitchcock's Lifeboat,
and this movie was mainly one location. There was a couple other locations. It started off in the other guy's like job or whatever, and then went into the car, then went to the house, then went outside the house a couple times. So I'm okay with that. So that doesn't even bother me, but it's also how you do it.
Well, it adds to the claustrophobic feel when you're stuck in one area.
I like that.
I guess from what you're saying, somebody needs to write Witch Boat, a mashup of Witch House and Lifeboat.
I don't know how that would work, but all right. Somebody do magic spells on a boat, and all of a sudden they're all screwed.
There you go. That happens.
Oh, I don't know. I would never want to do what Hitchcock did, which Hitchcock did things that were different. He tried to think outside the box and do things that, people weren't doing, and everything. And I love that. I think that is amazing. And the more people actually go and, make stuff that, they say, okay, well, this hasn't been done, so let's go and do that. Nobody's made a movie where the whole movie takes place on a lifeboat. That's what Hitchcock was saying. Let's go and do that. And everything. That is innovative and cool. Nowadays, almost everything's sort of been done in a way, and it's really hard to do something different. So what you got to do is you got to do the same thing but a little different. Make a twist on it, or whatever. And that's what you have to
Gender
do.
swap people or race swap people.
No. I'm not talking that. I mean,
but that's what a lot of them do.
Well, that's because,
because they're lazy.
No, that's because of the culture that we live in. People feel that women, especially, aren't being seen well enough in those roles.
Well, yeah, but it's lazy when that's the only change.
Right. I mean, it isn't like it is because because if that's the only change you do is you swap one gender from another, or you
give the same exact story.
And you give them the exact same story, yes. But in the same sense, that's sort of more of what is going on. But my only argument is like and to go back to comics, is when somebody makes changes a character that's been primarily white, right? And then they switch it to a different race because the fact that sadly African Americans have not had that many great comic book characters. There's not that many, and Kevin Smith even points this out in Chasing Amy. Many of them were slapped with racist names to signal them out, and I agree 100%. The Black Panther, why does he have to be that? Why? Like, he didn't, but that was back then. That was what they did.
Could have been the Black Penguin.
Well, no. Anyway, the point isn't the name of that, but it's the fact that they're just using that. So,
yeah, I know. I hear you. My argument is something like the new, Tolkien crap, where they are taking characters that, come from Tolkien that were white European.
Game of Thrones did that too.
And change their races to, and I get it. There's, historically black characters are underrepresented. But the thing is, Tolkien has a whole other world and a whole other area, the whole southern races that have not been explored. You can make new characters and new stories and make a whole series based on that, where it's nothing but black characters. You just have to actually apply some talent and some work and actually make something, rather than just take a character that's already there and just, just ding, now you're black.
Right.
That's lazy and stupid, in my opinion.
Well, it's not lazy. I think it's just,
lazy.
Once again, I think it's a matter of trying to give characters, that haven't been, or that people that haven't had the chance to play certain characters, be able to play those certain. It's the same thing as they were talking about casting a Black James Bond. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Because never in Ian Fleming's books have they ever stated his race. They never said he's a white guy who blah blah blah. Right? So that's
it's a little different with James Bond, because anybody can be. It's just a code name. So
right. And
the idea is that eventually he's going to die, and they're going to have to bring in a new one anyway.
Right. So
and it could be a woman. I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't be a woman as well.
You'd have to change the name, because there are no Jameses. I don't think there's a James that's a woman. But whatever. I mean, it could be interesting, because it would be funny that like somebody's like, "Oh, a James Bond's coming," and then it's a woman that shows up and is like, "Hi, my name."
Don't
is
even
James
have to be human. I mean, why not have an android or a robot James Bond? I mean, you could literally do anything you want there.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. So, but when it's Tolkien, yes, I agree. When it's Tolkien, that I don't know how we got onto that with talking about Hell House, but that's how we are. We go off topic a little bit. If they did this movie, they would make it. They would change the races a little bit, and give diversity.
And
because
that's fine.
This movie didn't had all white characters, which was fine at that time period of like, this is who we were writing for.
Right? Yeah. No. Well, there's nothing in the book saying that any of these people have to be white.
Right.
I mean, so you could certainly bring in new people. You just, in that case, you're the only change you're doing to the character is kind of cosmetic at that point. You're not changing their. See, if you start changing them, if you start making, Florence Tanner being the scientist instead of being the medium, Now you're screwing with the dynamic of the story.
Yeah, you're changing the character completely.
Making her an African American woman, on the other hand, is not changing the dynamic.
What if they made it? I mean, I'm not saying they should, but what if they made it a male instead of a female, and then switch the two characters, make the
so in other words, make Fisher the survivor a female, and then you could do that.
Okay,
I think you could do that, as long as they remain in the roles that they were designed to play. I think that's what the story depends on. Everything else is kind of flavor. I would hope that there is a reason you're doing that, not just to,
not just to give
pander
somebody, pander to
people.
a certain demographic.
I'm hoping you're utilizing that as a way to either explore more in the story or bring something else into the story that wasn't really touched on.
Honestly,
but again, that's not being lazy. That's being, a writer.
I think, honestly, Hollywood does this a lot, where they will change the races and they'll change everything. I'm going to use this. This is a terrible example, but I'm going to use this because it's so new and getting a lot of bad publicity and everything. Is Velma. Did you hear about that cartoon?
Yeah.
And how terrible it was, and they've been greenlit for a second season, and only because people hate it so much that they will watch it. They watch it to hate it, and I'm like, don't do that. But the point is, like, they made every single person different. Velma is, I guess, Pakistani or whatever. Mindy Kaling is,
Indian, isn't she?
Indian. So they made her Indian. They made, they kept Fred white because they need.
Because he's an asshole.
Because he's an asshole. He's a white privilege thing. Then they made. Of
course, they made him into that. He's not really like that.
No, he's never like that. No. So they made him into that, and they made him stupid, as hell. And
there's no Scooby.
That's
Scooby. The thing that blew my mind about it. There's no Scooby-Doo in Scooby-Doo.
It's not Scooby-Doo. It's
Scooby-Doo universe, though.
Yeah. So maybe he'll show up in the second season. I don't know. But
knowing Mindy Kaling, it'll be Scrappy instead.
Anyway, so then, Daphne is Asian, which she still looks, white, even though she's supposed to be Asian. And then and Norva's black. Shaggy is black. So. And he acts nothing like Shaggy. He's not a pothead. He's not, whatever. He's not all these things. And I'm like, yeah, you're just fucking with the thing just because either you don't like the source material or you just want to just,
It's interesting. I was watching, I haven't watched it, but I did watch a couple people's reviews. And one person, this young black woman who likes to review things from her perspective, and she has some interesting points that she makes. She was like, yeah, everybody told me to watch this, and I did, and everybody sort of expected me to say how great and woke and how wonderful it is, and I freaking hated it. No. And she says, who was the audience that this was made for? I'll tell you who this was made for. This was made for Mindy Kaling, and that's it. That's what this was made for. And she's right. From everything that I've heard, it's like, I made it for myself.
Yeah. It was pretty much just everybody kissed Velma's ass and loved Velma, and Velma was so great, and Velma was this and that. And so it was just an ego boost for Mindy as a person to
when you start
enjoy it.
When you start screwing around with people's perceptions of character, you're really walking into a minefield. There were a lot of people that didn't like the Wednesday thing. Because they changed watch it yet, Wednesday. But I want to. Well, they changed her into more of a popular kid, and there's some stuff in there that a lot of people did not like. And
I understand.
It's a minefield. It really is.
It's hard these days to give the audience something new and sort of culturally appropriate. And when you go complete, not even woke. That show was not woke, because a woke show. Okay, so another movie I watched, and I'll give my little quick review of it, is the movie You People. I really enjoyed that movie. A lot of people hated that movie.
It just came out, didn't it?
Yeah, it just came out, and a lot of people hated it because it.
5 minutes, a movie can't come out without him going to it.
Right. Well, I mean, because I'm watching all these new movies and stuff, so I'm trying to watch as many movies in 2023 as I can.
Apparently.
New stuff, but You People just came out, and I was like, people are talking about it, so I wanted to check it out. I watched it. Jackie didn't find it funny at all, and I get it, because it wasn't supposed to be like ha 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 funny. This movie was supposed to be
no button fart jokes for Jackie.
No, and what it was it was a movie that's supposed to make us talk about our dealings with race. But I had a disagreement with somebody today over it. Somebody thinks that I'm wrong, but maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But Julia Louis-Dreyfus is so over the top in her character and her performance.
I didn't know she was in that.
Yeah, she is so over the top in her character and her performance that it becomes sort of unlikable, where I'm just like, okay, like, I get that there are dumb people in the world, right? But are people going to talk about race every single time? Like, if you see a person of color, do you start talking to them about their race? No. This just does not happen. Even if somebody were to be in my family and everything, I don't bring up race, because that is just, even in today's culture, that's just, if it becomes a topic of discussion on the dinner table, that's one thing.
Yeah, if there's a point to it. Right.
But when it's like every single thing, the person's saying something about their race, I'm like, oh my God, this is getting a little bit too much, And I feel like her character did that way too much, where she started like, and David Duchovny's in it too, as the father.
David Duchovny's in it too?
Yeah.
Holy
it's a great cast. A fantastic cast.
I had no idea.
Eddie Murphy. I mean, it's just got this amazing cast.
Eddie Murphy?
Yeah, he is the father.
Wow.
Yeah. Now he's like, I want to see this movie. It's on Netflix if you can see it.
Maybe. But
it's a great movie. Like, it does.
I've been bit too many times by modern movies to get excited about anything anymore, but yeah.
So it's got like a great cast. It's got these people that just, but it all of a sudden it becomes like everything's about race, and I'm like thinking, not everybody always feels that way, Yeah. And I feel like that it's just,
My feeling is, when you've gone to the trouble to write your own thing and you create your own characters, you can make them whatever you want to be. If they want to be mouthpieces for whatever you feel politically or socially, do whatever you want. When you deal with somebody else's established characters, you need to stay true to that character. Mm-hmm. You can make some changes. I just hope that the changes that you make, that it's for a reason and it's not just for pandering. But you can certainly change things. I mean, there is no, I remember there was a big deal back in the early 90s, I think, when Denzel Washington was playing, in the Shakespeare movie. God, it wasn't, no, it was Lawrence Fishburne. God, I can't think of the name of it, where he was playing, is it Othello? I think he did Othello. Okay. And there were people who were upset about that, or, every now and again, Kenneth Branagh will have a black actor play a Shakespearean character who's not traditional black. That's not a problem. You are not changing the basic character by doing that.
You're still keeping the character. You're just changing the color.
You're simply giving somebody else the opportunity to play that character that had been close to them before, and that's awesome. I have no problem with that. It's not like they've taken Hamlet and turned him into this woke person who just talks about nothing but race.
Oh, come on, though.
It's just
Last
ridiculous.
Action Hero had the best Hamlet I've ever seen. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger as Hamlet, and he was like, to be or not to be, and then he throws the lights something on fire, goes, not to be. And I'm like, come on, awesome.
That's a parody.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny, though.
But you're not going to make a whole movie around
They
that.
should.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Arnold Schwarzenegger, make that Hamlet movie. I want to see that. I would watch that. I would watch Hamlet taking out the trash.
I don't think the joke would sustain itself over 2 hours, frankly.
Maybe. Well, it would.
But anyway, this is a book and a narrative, a story that is ripe for retelling. You could do it as a film too, but I would love to see a miniseries come out of this, because you could go into the depths and the details that Legend of Hell House hints at, but doesn't really fully explore because of the confines of being a single film. Mm-hmm. The film itself is still great. I recommend everybody to go out and check it out, especially if you really like really, really well done, serious horror films.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely check it out. Get the Tubi or buy the Blu-ray, which is what I did because there's all kinds of great extras on there.
I hope they make a 4K out of this.
Yeah, that would be cool.
It's beautiful. It's beautifully shot.
That would be cool. But yeah, I highly recommend it, and I can't say enough good things about it. And who knows? Maybe someone out there will remember this, because that's just it. There's a lot of material out there, and maybe a lot of people just haven't forgotten it. I know Richard Matheson, anything that he wrote, or anything Robert Bloch wrote, or some of the other people out there, people have sort of check marks on their material as though these are people that we can readapt at some point, because again, built-in audience, people know them.
Yeah, I hope they don't do Psycho again. If they do Psycho again, because I like the Bates Motel series and stuff.
You didn't like the Gus Van Sant shot-for-shot remake?
I mean, I love Vince Vaughn. You know I love me some Vince Vaughn. Do not love him in that.
I don't understand
way
shot-for-shot remakes. I just don't.
He was way miscast, and that movie was way misdone.
A shot-for-shot remake is like writing a book version of a movie that never had a book, where you're just following the exact same thing.
It's funny because, like, what Cabin Fever, they did a shot-for-shot remake of that, and it's just like, why?
That's just
like,
ridiculous.
I mean, what is the point? I think they did that for money.
I mean, I understand some people want to do an homage, but you do that with like one scene or two scenes. You don't do an entire film.
Yeah, if you do like the Shining remake, you do you do an homage of the maybe the stuff coming out, like the blood coming down or whatever, or the writing the what was the sequel,
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep had that in there where they went back to the Shining, and then there was a lot of throwbacks to the original and stuff, and there was great homages.
Too much.
I liked it.
I liked it, but it went over the top. That whole thing, especially with the woman, the dead woman in the tub.
Yeah.
They used her way too much and turned her from a frightening figure into a clown, which pissed me off.
You don't like clowns?
No, I don't.
Anyway, yes, if they adapt into a TV series,
I would love to see this adapted.
And Mike Flanagan, get on it. I'll have to contact some people.
Well, you never know. I mean, if nobody's interested, we can figure it out. Get on a phone.
Call us.
Yep.
Well, we'll figure it out. He'll definitely produce it, and stuff.
We'll
get some really good writers.
I could see YouTube picking this up, or not YouTube, Netflix picking that up.
Netflix or HBO Max would be perfect, because both of those allow, or Prime, all three of those allow for like really disturbing stuff.
Yeah, especially HBO. You can do an extra step in HBO.
Yeah, in Netflix they might hold back a little bit. Prime definitely.
There's a few extra steps in this one.
Yeah, so there you go. They love that. They love nudity there and things like that. So there could be. I mean, you could have a whole episode that just explores what happened to the house.
Oh yeah, throwbacks.
Throwbacks to the
some of this crazy, weird, disturbing, violent orgy nastiness. Because remember the one part he's like, what happened? Oh well, necrophilia, cannibalism, incest, and he's like goes down the whole list, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean that's why there's so much bad energy in the movie and there or whatever. But you also. I like it too that it wasn't just the bad energy. There was really a ghost,
right.
Like this wasn't. I mean, how can he explain that this chick keeps hearing this person talk to him and stuff? Energy doesn't talk to you. Energy doesn't do these things. Like, I mean, he just tried to use every example in the world.
Well, I guess he was thinking that, it's an energy, but that's how her brain is interpreting it. Because she's another way.
I think he was just reaching.
Well, and the thing is you could also, if you were going to remake this, you could update it a little bit more with modern science and a modern scientific approach, as opposed to what they knew back in 1972.
Once again, I would love to see Lenore watch this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And get her perspective.
Next time she's around.
Yeah, we'd have to have her watch it, because the science stuff is interesting, and I think that'll help her not get scared of the movie, because she'll start thinking about the science of it.
And for once, we're not giving her a movie with crappy, weird, stupid science for her to pick apart and say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't.
Well,
do
she
that.
might.
She might.
That would be interesting
Yeah,
to see
be.
if she would say, you can't make that kind of machine that could do this stuff, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
because...
well, but there's nothing in the film or even in the book, from what I can tell, that does that. There's no MacGuffin. There's no weird, stupid shit that's not correct.
Right.
There's maybe some fanciful interpretation, but I don't think there's anything here that, people would look back today, back in 1972, and say, "Oh God, they were stupid." No, it's just that things have advanced a lot, especially with technology. Technology is completely.
Well, right now you could definitely create the kind of stuff that they that they were doing.
And that, to me, is the only question that I would have if I were going to redo this. Do I remake it at the time that the original was made, or do I remake it for modern times, for today?
I would remake it for modern
times. That's two different stories there.
Yeah, I would do modern. That's where I would go, because you could do a lot more with the science stuff and having technological stuff that, really helps, them try to figure out if this is, and then you could talk about all the other ghost stuff and things, because our culture is completely different than it was in the 70s, as you said. Right now, we have all these ghost movies and ghost stuff, and there's ghost hunters, and there's all of these things. It would be interesting to get a science movie
to set it in modern times would be interesting. You just want to make sure that there is a comment or there's something you want to talk about in relation for this story with the times that you're setting it in. So it's not just, we just threw it in there because of convenience.
Right. No. It would but like I said, the thing that I would be more interested in to see is all of the technological advances that they would use to try to figure out if this is energy or if this is whatever that they wouldn't have had back then to be able to do.
And you can still use flashbacks to go back in time to show different points in the history of the house and the different characters.
Maybe
and different things,
maybe even what I would do, and this is me personally, what I would do is if I were to do a TV show, I would not have those characters. Those characters would be flashbacks to whatever. I would set it in this time. It would be years after the original stuff had happened and everything like that.
Grandson,
and this house is still around and everything, and somebody owns it and somebody wants to know, whatever's going on, and then there's a whole new group of people. Then you can do whatever you want with the characters.
Return to Hell House.
Something like that. Oh, I wouldn't call it that because that sounds like a movie title.
I know, it's movie of the week title stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like Return to the Haunted House.
Hell House
or Haunted
Reborn.
Hill. Remember his House on a Haunted Hill, or Return to a House on Haunted Hill. Things like that, which I've never seen. But
so we should have like one of those plastic skeletons float across, like in.
And are we going to bring back Vincent Price? I mean, these days you can. If they can bring back Grand Moff Tarkin, they can bring back, Don't
anybody.
Make
me laugh. I'm going to choke.
I know. All right.
I think we've wrapped up this episode.
We've talked enough on this stuff, and really appreciated you guys being a part of the first. We forgot to mention, this is the fourth season. I think it's the fourth season.
You're keeping track of this, not me.
I am, and it's the fourth season of Film Freaks.
Yeah, so there you go. So check out Legends of Hell House. Get the book Hell House, and it's just
see it on Tubi if you haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we kind of spoiled it. We didn't talk about the fact. It's
nothing compared to the
You
story.
have to watch the movie.
You have to watch it.
You have to watch it. You'll love it.
Yeah.
If you don't love it, then ask for your money back from Tubi.
Thanks a lot for joining us on Film Freaks, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. What do you saw?